Hey everyone, my name is Alex. Welcome back to Broken Pines Farm. This is my Land Pride RCR1860 brush cutter. It is one of my favorite implements for the tractor. It just does such a nice job. It takes care of everything for us. We use it to mow the fields and do some major maintenance around the property. It is in need of a good cleaning. We're going to change the gear oil also, make sure everything's okay. Take a little look at the blades, and then we'll go from there. Also, I'm trying a new mic placement. It seems kind of in my face, but we'll see how it goes, see how the sound is, and we'll go from there. So let's bring it around the back. There's a spot where I can park hill facing backwards uphill to try and elevate the brush cutter so we can take a peek at the blades and start cleaning this thing and changing the oil. Let's get to it. Okay, let me chat a bit about the why we went with the 1860, and then I'm going to walk around and show you a bit of the features. 1860, 60 means 5 feet, 60 inches. There's an 1872 model for the 6-footer. This tractor is a Kubota L4060, so it's a 42 engine horsepower, translates to about 35, 36 horsepower to PTO. This can definitely run a 6-footer brush cutter. The thing is, I want to be able to get into tighter spaces, and I didn't want to get a brush cutter that was too much wider than the tractor. The tractor is give or take 68 inches wide, and the brush cutter is 60. That means wherever the tractor fits, I don't have to worry about the brush cutter. Sometimes the access in the tree farm and eventually the orchard, I don't want to have to worry and forget, because these tractors are so powerful. They'll uproot a tree if you're not careful. When I look in my mirrors and I see that my wheel clears the tree or the brush or the seedling, that means that the cutter at the back will also clear that seedling. The downside is I am rolling and tapping down grass, weeds, whatever I want to cut. And that means when I do another pass, sometimes that area that was tapped down and pressed down by the tires won't cut as easily. So that is the one downside. But I'm very happy with the fact I went with a 5-footer and not the 6-footer. Now let me bring you close. Man, the mosquitoes are ferocious today. Let's walk around this thing and see what it's made of. So this Land Pride unit was purchased at the same time as I got the tractor, and this was set up by the dealership. It's got the rotating tire at the back, which is a never flat tire, a full tire. It has adjustments for height, depending on how high or how low you want things, to be able to adjust more freely the height of your brush cutter. Has a guard at the back, which is rubber. I do believe you have the option for chains instead. It has a little hook that you can use to rest your PTO shaft when you're not using it, so you're not putting stress on anything. It does have 2 modes, and it is quick attach ready. I believe it's the Land Pride's version of quick attach. And this does pivot up and down when you move it to adjust your height. So your back wheel will touch, and then this will decide the height of the deck. It also has some guards at the front here that are rubber. You can get some chains if you want. If we take a peek underneath. So another neat feature is you see the size and shape of that middle disc there. It's made to want to ride up on stumps. So if I'm hitting a stump, it's not going to hit hard. It's going to want to ride up and try to ride on top of things instead of dragging and tearing and pulling. And this is a brush cutter. So these blades are not made to be sharp. They're basically tearing things apart. They're not cutting things. For that, you want a finish mower. That's why I can go over some saplings that are the size of my thumb, and it'll just tear them apart, which is the whole idea behind it. And again, you can see there's little gouges and little dents from hitting bigger wood, but the goal here is to cut down wild areas and not do the job of a finish mower. I decided to go with the model that had the gearbox and sorry, big trucks. I decided to go to the model with the gearbox and the slip clutch. There is a version with no slip clutch. It's just a shear pin. So if you hit resistance, the pin there will snap so that you don't damage the engine. In this case, if I hit too much resistance to not damage the tractor, there's a slip clutch. That means the clutch will slip. So the PTO will spin freely and it won't engage the blades until you lift the attachment and then you get to move it again. Then the clutch will reattach. There is a guard on there I don't want to remove. So let me bring you to the Stump Grinder so I can show you what the clutch looks like. Hey, look who's here. It's Milo. Milo is now 5.5 months old. He's almost lost all of his puppy fur. You can see on top of his head. He still has a leftover. Now it just looks like he has frosted tips. And he's in his high school years in the year 2002. Milo has been loving this place, except he's on the leash now, the really, really long leash, because this morning he went for a run and started rolling in things that he's not supposed to roll into. Oh, little pee break. And that means he needs a bath, and he knows he's not supposed to do that. But otherwise, he's been a little trooper, he's loving the place, and he's very, very happy. Oh, a ball. We found a ball. Okay, here's a Stump Grinder. And I explained this in my review of the Stump Grinder. It's the exact same principle. So you can see here we have 8 springs going around, and there is what they call a slip clutch. So it's 2 friction plates held together by the springs. So what happens is the springs decide the tension, and the size of compression on those springs is dependent on the size of your engine, because otherwise it would always be slipping or never slipping if your tractor was too powerful or too weak. So those plates are designed to slip, and that spring is adjusted for your PTO power. So in my case, that setup was done at the dealership. I do not know the exact numbers. Oh, hey buddy, wanna say hi? Hey buddy. Milo. Milo the dog. Hey, what's up, dude? He likes to snuggle. I'm not sure the exact numbers. Those would be found in my user's manual. But they've been set by the dealership, and I haven't had any problems. It has slipped only once or twice, really. I know where the stumps are, so I try not to hit them. And that plate I showed you, that's like cone-shaped, does a really fine job at riding up and not jamming on anything. Let's go give it a little clean and a little maintenance. Here's a great example where the brush cutter shines, is these darn saplings, these invasive species that grow and they get to about 1 inch in size. You can just run over this with the brush cutter. It'll take care of everything. Even some dead fallen branches, but mostly these saplings, because a regular finish mower, you're gonna damage it, and a weed whacker, there's no chance. Maybe if you have a brush cutter on your weed whacker, maybe it'll work, but otherwise the brush cutter just eats these things up, which is quite practical. And if you're wondering what this thing shaped like a tube here is, it's just something that screws and unscrews, and it's usually where they leave your instruction manual. But it's not really fully watertight, so I never keep anything in there. Well, I guess you could keep tools, but I wouldn't keep paperwork in there. There's also a cap right here that you just line up the blades, and you can unbolt the blade if you want to change it or take it out. So nothing crazy today, just a good rinse. Make sure that there's no leftover grass. Don't want anything to start rusting too early. When I store the brush cutter for winter, it is, if you look at my property walk around video, it's stored underneath a little shelter, so it's not fully exposed to the environments. You can see in the background, everything's growing, the garden's really good. The cardboard and wood chips worked very, very well. Apples, I had the summer apples. I made a little short video, made a couple apple crumbles, a couple batches of applesauce, delicious. And then the other apples should be ready probably beginning of September, so 2.5 weeks. You can grab them now, but they're really, really tart, really sour. And then cauliflowers, tomatoes, peppers. My first time trying hot peppers. I don't really like spicy stuff, but when you grow it yourself, it's just way better. Potatoes are coming along nicely. We have a beautiful squash in there. The herbs, the beans, carrots, onions. It's just amazing. And it's really made me want to cook more and bake more, which is a lot of fun. It's very rewarding. Every little compartment also has little holes in the corners. So that if water accumulates, it wants to drain, which is really nice. Because obviously an implement like that is probably going to last many, many years. It's big, solid steel. The goal is to make sure it doesn't rust and take care of the wear points and make sure to lubricate it as needed. So now I'm gonna flush that gearbox and I'm gonna figure out all the little spots that take grease and make sure everything is greased nice and good. Just your typical run-of-the-mill grease gun, manual with regular grease. There's a couple of grease points here for the back wheel. So you can see grease is starting to pop out, so we're full. There's another grease point on the wheel itself, if I recall correctly. Yep. I like to keep pumping until I see some grease come out. Perfect. At the same time, if there was any water in there, it's going to displace that water out, which is good. And while I'm here, I'm going to grease the back of the tractor here. There's a couple of spots that take grease on the PTO shaft. All right, so gearbox. This is your level port. So whenever you pour, you fill it up. Whenever it starts leaking out of here, that means you're full. Try to be as level as you can. This is the dipstick / fill port. The downside is there's no drain port, so we'll have to suction it from the top. And here's a really, really, really useful tip. When you're gonna do a job like this, make sure that your fill port is loose and you can open it before you open a drain or level port, because if oil comes out of there and I can't get this open, I don't have any means to get oil back in there, right? So make sure that one works and then open that one, and then we can go from there. So an 8mm will fit in there. Okay, so that's good. Like that there. What do we have for the top here? 19 mil. Seems to do the trick here. Just pressurize slightly. Okay. Let's crack this bad boy open. There we go. Sorry, my mechanic just called saying that the car was ready. But which car, you say, Alex? Oh, it's pretty full. Okay, so siphon, pan. Let's make sure I remember which one's which one's it, and which one's out. I have a big syringe, but unfortunately it's like a big plunger, but unfortunately the tubing doesn't fit. So this oil was never changed. This is the first time I do this. Maybe has, I want to say, maybe 25 hours on it. Obviously the tractor has what, close to 150 hours right now. Snow blowing and brush cutting take up most of the time. Obviously, using the winch and getting those trees out of the way in our path takes time, but the tractor doesn't have to be running the whole time, right? While when you're brush cutting, not much choice. Let's open this. Nothing's coming out, that's good. Now I doubt I'm going to get the whole thing in there, but at least as long as I have fresh liquid, mostly it's going to dilute whatever bad liquid's in there. Now let's go get the oil. Alright, sorry about that. I had to go pick up the car from the mechanic. So basically we're going to watch this, and as soon as it starts coming out, and usually these are magnetic plugs, so if there's metal shavings. Yeah, there's a couple, I don't know if you can see, there's a bit of shiny stuff here. So the metal shavings get stuck to it, so it doesn't roll around your oil and your gear. So this is what I'm going to put in, 80, 90 weight gear oil. It's not very expensive. It's not the big time synthetics, but it should work well. Turns out I only bought 2 liters. Alright, we'll keep an eye on it. Again, this is not completely empty, so hopefully 2 liters will do it. Oh, there we go. So it took 1.5 liters, that means there is still some in there. But at least it got some brand new oil. And I'll just keep doing that. What does the manual call for? So the manual says to change the oil every 8 hours, which, to be honest, I'm not going to change it that often, but it's good to know. Snug is tight. Back in here. Another good idea if you're not using your brush cutter for a long time, you want to run the clutch. Basically, you untight the springs, you pick it up, you turn on the PTO, and it should slip, so that if there's anything stuck in there, because you don't want the clutch plates to be fixed together, because corrosion will get them stuck together and it defeats the purpose of having the clutch. So if it's sitting for a long time, at least there's a guard here, but if it's under the elements, it's been a while since you used it, it's a good idea to loosen your springs, let the clutch run, and then once that's done, tighten back your springs according to spec. You can find them in your user manual, and then you'll be good to go. Alright, let me clean up and I'll be right back.
Ja?
Tractor? Tractor. Well, everyone, that was the Land Pride brush cutter RCR1860. To be fair, it's the only brush cutter I own. It works very well. I'm very happy with my purchase. Oh, hey, buddy. I've only ever used another one, my brother-in-law's. It was a 6-footer, and it was shear pin, not clutch-based. And let me tell you, when you hit a tree stump, you know it, because it's very jarring, it's very hard on the machine, versus this one, where the clutch will slip. Oh, you want to go? You want to say bye? Bye. Bye. Okay. Thank you. Very jarring versus this one, where it'll skip over the stump and it won't damage the tractor, which works very well. If it fits your budget and this is what you're looking for, this is a great machine. Again, I can't recommend something else. All I know is it's easy to maintain, it's well built, the color matches the tractor, and it's a worthy addition to my arsenal. I use it a lot. It's probably what I use the most right now with the snowblower. Works very well, very happy with it. And as you saw, this was the maintenance I did. Other than lubricating some parts sometimes and sharpening the blade if you want to, but for my needs, it's plenty sharp right now. But what kind of implement are you using on the back? Do you have a brush cutter? How big is it? Do you have a finish mower? I might look at a finish mower, although, to be honest, I would really love some type of brush cutter that's smaller and fits underneath the tractor. I know this doesn't have a mid-mount PTO, so it'll never be able to do that, but it's just I want a more compact form, and I need something that blows out the grass, the weeds and whatnot at the back, not the side, because right now I don't want to damage my seedlings. So I'll have to figure out a solution that's a bit more commercial than what I'm using with a Cub Cadet, and we'll see what happens. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment down below. I will see you in the next video. Take care. Did you get a flower? Is that a flower? Oh, bye. Bye.